This demo is for Instant Pot butter chicken or butter chickpeas and or cauliflower. In addition to your 6 or 8 quart Instant Pot, if you're cooking rice with this dish, which I highly recommend, you will need a strainer to rinse your rice, a pot with a lid or cover for your rice, and then a trivet tall enough to raise above the mixture that will be inside. You will also need measuring cups, dry measuring cups actually, for your rice. You'll need a meat, but it will be cooked meat cutting board if you separate it. You will need all these utensils, the knife, measuring spoons, can opener, and serving and mixing spoons. Also a trivet to put your hot pot on, and the gloves in order to get your pot out of the base. In addition to that, you're also going to need a blender to blend up the sauce so it's nice and creamy in the end. For ingredients, you will need 1 large or 2 regular cans of diced or stewed tomatoes. Although I'm not using garlic, if you're not sensitive to it, I definitely would add it, about a teaspoon of powdered or 2 teaspoons of crushed. I'm using garlic infused olive oil, 1.5 teaspoons or more of minced ginger, 1.5 teaspoons of ground cumin, 1.5 teaspoons of garam masala. The recipe is below if you want to make your own. It's really good. 1.5 teaspoons of turmeric, 1.5 teaspoons of smoked paprika, and also cayenne pepper. I don't suggest 1.5 teaspoons unless you like it really spicy, so I went with 1/2 teaspoon, but it's up to you. And 1.5 teaspoons of salt. 1.5 pounds of chicken breasts or thighs. The thighs always come out more tender in these recipes. And for the vegetarian version, or if you just prefer chickpeas, you will need 2 cans of chickpeas that are drained. Another option is to use chickpeas and cauliflower, or just cauliflower, in which case you will need 1 whole large cauliflower, or 1 can of chickpeas and half of a cauliflower. You'll also need some basmati rice, depending on how much you want to make. For this recipe, I made 1.5 cups, but I think I could have used 2 cups. This does make a lot of sauce. Now, traditionally, there's heavy cream in the butter chicken, so you can use cream. We need 3/4 of a cup of some sort of cream. You could use light cream, like the half and half, or the coconut cream if you prefer a dairy-free option. So I used a combination of the coconut cream and the half and half cream. Also, traditionally, there is butter or ghee. So you'll need about 3 to 4 tablespoons of butter or ghee. I used both actually in this recipe. So you can split it up, but again, if you don't want a dairy option, then the ghee is great. Or you could use alternative butter. And lastly, you have to have cilantro on top of butter chicken. So to get started, grab your inner pot from the Instant Pot and put it beside you. Get your tools out of the way, and we're going to start adding all the ingredients to the inner pot. But before I do, I just want to show off my new apron that my sister-in-law made me from scratch. I love squirrels and chipmunks, and this one has cute little chipmunks and little mushrooms all over it. Thank you so much to you, Jeannie. Firstly, open up your large can of stewed or diced tomatoes, and I'm just going to measure it first just so that I can tell you there are about 3 cups that's required, and that's what's in these large cans. Now, if you're using garlic in the recipe, which you kind of need it unless you're sensitive like I am, add in a teaspoon of powdered or a couple of teaspoons of the crushed. Then add in 1.5 teaspoons or more of minced ginger. It looks like I'm adding 3, but I actually used a half teaspoon here, so it's 1.5 teaspoons of minced ginger. For the cayenne pepper, you really need to do it to your own liking. Some people really love the spicy. I like a little bit, so I'm only adding 1/4 teaspoon. Then you need to add in all the rest of the spices. So that would be 1.5 teaspoons of all of the following: turmeric, smoked paprika, salt, garam masala, and cumin. Grab your mixing spoon and mix that all together so the spices are combined into the tomatoes, and then we're going to add in the chicken. So add in the chicken, and that's going in whole. We're not going to be cutting this into pieces until after it's cooked. Otherwise, it would really get overcooked. However, if you are using the chickpea and or cauliflower version, do not add either one of those at this time. But do continue to follow the next directions with the rice, and I will be mixing back and forth during the demo between the meat version and the chickpea version. So mix the chicken in with the sauce and then get your rice together if you are cooking rice with the dish. So you need to get your rice, rinse it, put it into the inner pot that you are going to be using. Don't forget to put the trivet in first. The rice is 1:1 measurements, so 1 cup to 1 cup. 1 cup of rice, 1 cup of water, and 1 teaspoon of salt and 1 teaspoon of butter. So I'm not using any pepper in the main dish because there's already cayenne pepper in there, but if you like a little pepper with your rice, add a bit in. I like to seal my rice really well, so I put a bit of tin foil over top and then push the lid down on. If you were using the 8-quart Instant Pot, you might have enough room to add the sling to make it more easy to take your pot of rice in and out, but in the 6-quart, there is not enough room. Now add the inner pot with all of the goodies inside and into the base. Turn the lid, make sure you set your valve to sealing, not venting. And then for the meat version, adjust your settings so that it will pressure cook on high for exactly 10 minutes. If you are doing the chickpea and or cauliflower version, set your timer to 6 minutes. Then regardless of which version, give it a 5-minute natural pressure release. Then release the remainder of the pressure. Take out the rice if you've cooked rice, and then the trivet. Then take some tongs or a slotted spoon and get the chicken out. If you have a little bit of extra chunks of tomatoes that come out with it, that's fine. But try to leave the majority of the tomatoes and sauce still in the pot. so that we can blend it up. For the chickpea version, there's nothing to take out, so you're going to move right ahead and put it into the blender. Grab your mitts because it's going to be hot and you're going to have to do this carefully. There'll be a little bit of splashing, but get all of the sauce into the large blender attachment, and you'll see that there's a little bit of singeing. I'm not going to say burning, but singeing on the bottom, and this actually happens with this recipe every time I make it. I've never had the burn signal. If you're worried about it, you could add a little bit extra liquid, but then you're going to need to account for that in the runny sauce. Put your blender on and it doesn't take too long, just blend it until everything is smooth and pour it back into the pot. Next, we're going to be adding in the cream and butter, but that is only for the meat version. For the chickpea and or cauliflower version, now add those into the creamy sauce that does not have butter or milk in it or cream, and pressure cook for 1 minute and do a quick pressure release. For the meat version, add in the cream and butter. That is 3 to 4 tablespoons of butter or ghee and 3/4 of a cup of some sort of cream or a mixture of different creams. And for the chicken, you just want to carefully cut it. It will break apart in some places, but try to cut it into your bite-sized pieces, or if you like it more shredded, it doesn't matter, and add that all back into the pot. For the chickpea version, if you've got the lid open, let it cool just a little bit because we don't want the cream and butter to curdle, but add that cream and butter in and mix it up. Give it a good but gentle stir and then check for your spice level. I always like to add a little bit more salt, so I'll do that. But also at this stage, you want to add in 1 teaspoon of extra garam masala to add that just extra freshness of that spice. So add that plus a little bit more salt if that's what you need. And if it's not too spicy for you, add in a little bit of pepper as well. And now you are ready for serving. But before doing that, this could be a messy affair, so it's better to take the inner pot out of the base before serving. And lastly, chop up your cilantro and sprinkle a generous amount on top. If you're interested in the Korean cucumber salad that I'm serving with this, I will put the recipe below. I hope you enjoy.